Tristan, thank you for sharing your project. Do you want to start by giving us a quick introduction about what your Heritage Fair project is about?
Okay. My project is on the Hilda Mega Bone Bed, and the Hilda Mega Bone Bed is a prehistoric death zone where 1,500 Centrosaurus died in the early to late Cretaceous. My project is about the fossils they found in that area.
I see. And why did you choose to learn about this project?
I chose to learn about this project because I am a huge fan of dinosaurs. They are my favorite thing in the universe, and I wanted to learn more about the ancient remains of them and different species.
That's really cool. Before we start, can you tell me what a Centrosaurus is?
A Centrosaurus is a ceratopsian dinosaur that has a single large horn on the end of its nose, a large bird-like beak, kind of like a parrot's.
Mhm.
Um, it weighs about can't remember exactly how much it weighs. It weighs around 2,500 pounds,
Whoa,
about
that's a lot.
a few tons, and it's a herbivore. They lived in large herds. They traveled with each other in large groups. They had a large crest, kind of like a Triceratops's, but slightly larger in size.
I,
And they had one horn instead of three.
that sounds like a very cool dinosaur. Tristan, I want to ask you, why is your topic important to Canadian history?
Because my topic is important to Canadian history because it shows what creatures used to live 65 million years ago. Um, we can learn more about the past of our evolution, and also pretty cool so people, tourists, can be more interested in our country and we can have a better community.
That's really nice of a response. I want to ask you, what is the most interesting thing you learned about?
The way that they died, which was a massive tropical flood caused by a huge storm on the coastline. They drowned.
I see. And what impact do you think learning the discovery of this dinosaur bed has made?
I think it was huge. Um, well, the Hilda Mega Bone Bed is one of the biggest dinosaur fossil remains in the entire planet, and there's only a couple that are larger than it, and they're not very much bigger. I think that this helped Canada and BC have a lot more money and information about these beautiful animals and how could learn about the ceratopsians themselves and what large groups they are in, how big they were, what it would have been like to live back then.
That's a really interesting thing to learn about. Are there any particular sources you use to find your information, or did you do what type of research did you did to learn about this?
Well, I used the Canadian Encyclopedia for one, Britannica, a book called The Dinosaur Provincial Park. I used Google and a few other sources, and one other book, Inverse, The Great Dinosaur Handoff. I had around 5 sources that I used.
That's a really nice variety of sources. Were there any challenges you found when doing the research?
There were a few. The largest one I would say was finding the impact of what they did, why that was so legendary for Canadian history. That was hard to find. And also another thing was it was very hard to find pictures of them actually digging up the bones instead of just weird, inaccurate images of the dinosaur and the same person over and over again.
Those are some challenges, but you have an amazing project right now, so really good job. I know you wanted to share some props or some parts of your project. Is there something you'd like to share right now?
Well, I would like to share my personal connection, my why the bone bed is there, and the timeline.
Okay.
The reason, like lots of the uncountable bone beds at Dinosaur Provincial Park, the Hilda megabone bed seems to be caused by a huge coastal plain flood that hit a very large herd of Centrosaurus. Evidence for coastal plain flooding recurs throughout the Cretaceous formations that hold these bone beds. Large-scale flooding seems to have been caused by seasonally active tropical storms in the nearby seaway. Accordingly, these storms are most likely similar to the ones that occur today in Bangladesh and the Gulf of Mexico. Data from the fossils gathered at Hilda show that the death and last burial were caused by separate flood events. For example, many of the ceratopsian carcasses at Hilda were trampled, broken, and scavenged by other dinosaurs before they were completely covered in the topsoil. The Hilda megabone bed gives extra evidence that Centrosaurus was a herding dinosaur and that Centrosaurus moved regularly in an east-west direction between Hilda and the Dinosaur Provincial Park. My timeline is 1.76 million years ago. The massive Centrosaurus herd is wiped out by a tropical flood. 1959, Van Langston Jr. recorded evidence of the bone bed. 1964 to 1966, Don Taylor of the Royal Alberta Museum oversaw the fossil collection from a new bone bed in the same region. My personal connection was The reason I have chosen this project is because dinosaurs are the most awesome subject slash living thing or animal in the whole world, not to mention Toolist and probably the universe. Also, when I went to Drumheller, I saw Jordan Mallon in the Royal Tyrrell Museum. The fact that living things were actually on Earth before us has always amazed me. I've always wanted to see one in real life, and I thought it would be a good idea to choose to do this project on one of Canada's most famous and biggest dinosaur bone beds. Jordan Mallon is the person who now runs the Hilda Mega Bone Bed.
Thank you for sharing, Tristan. You had a great presentation and good job.